How do we start? Do we say, how do we start? I get nervous as soon as the thing happens. All right, okay, let's start. I'm Phil, and we're talking about stuff.
I'm Kirsten. I'm going to talk back at Phil about stuff.
Okay, what are we talking about today?
I watched a video the other day on Creator Insider on YouTube on how Mr. Beast is embracing multi-language in a single channel. So he used to have a channel for Spanish and French, and they would dub it, and that meant that you had to manage the community then. You had to change the thumbnail for every video that you put out. And what he's done is he's dubbed his content and even now his backfill content and put it into one channel. So somebody can watch it in, I think, 15 languages. And then now the recommendation engine just recommends that channel, and he's slowly closing his other channels.
Having a lot of different channels is just honestly a lot more work. It's much easier just to run one channel than 12 because you have to make 12 different thumbnails. You have to, just reply to comments on 12, upload on 12. It's just so much easier to have it all in one central place. And on top of that, it's a lot simpler for the fans.
He's also created a whole business that will dub other creators' content so that they can get better reach.
When he first did the multi-channel thing, firstly, I just thought he's just so smart. It's kind of obvious, but it's super smart. But then I thought that must be a nightmare in every way. There's so many things that would make it a nightmare from an organizational point of view. That kind of function being there really opens up a huge amount of opportunity because localization of content is so prevalent in so many ways, but not within channels. And now it's such a thing. But it did make me think of a few kind of AI things that have happened this week that can complement that, and which are really kind of equally exciting and terrifying for me at the same time. The first one is by a company called HeyGen, which essentially is a build on what we've just shown there, which is how you can localize content in one place, but it still looks like dub. So it's still got the ADR sound of no lip sync up. What HeyGen have done is essentially that, but it will take the voice, it will build a model of that voice, it will then translate that voice into a local language, but still with the same intonation. So we can play a clip of Elon Musk speaking in French, I think it is, but it also syncs the lips as well.
Un morceau de crâne, le remplacer et placer le dispositif neurale.
Grande quantità di vino, mi capisci bene, vero? Intendo dire che ho bevuto tanto.
अगर मुझे इशारा करना हो तो मैं यहाँ देख सकता हूँ या देखना और
Just recreating the face or recreating the mouth structure. It's keeping the intonation of the voice, changing the language. And that is, firstly, I'm looking at that from a tech point of view. And I'm thinking that is just wild. And that's such a essentially it's multimodality of different AIs coming together to compensate that. But what I wanted to know from you, Kirsten, is could you think of how you could apply that in a professional way? Is there professional applications for that outside of maybe of the creator space? Or do you think that these things would be scary or too risky at this point of time for something so emerging?
So I almost have two opinions of it. So in the creator space, I don't think they're ready for it yet, because then you would still have to upload many videos in different languages, not the same video dubbed. YouTube would need to change the way it functions in order to facilitate that, where you would change the video to the language, the entire video, because of that. So I don't think the creator space is ready for it, but I do think in a professional business space, you're talking global CEOs can now suddenly be speaking in a local language to their workforce in another country. Testimonial videos can now be translated for customers in another country that are looking to invest. Your FAQ content, all of that kind of video content now becomes really easy and global. You don't have to recreate it 15 times. You make it once really well and use the AI to optimize it for all the languages.
This is why you're super smart. It's nearly always the opposite of what people intend. This is what I find interesting about these things. With generative AI images, which I'm playing around with the team all the time, it's so focused in the art space, but the real application of it is within the brand space, but no one's really focused on it that much in that way. And it is just a very interesting mix between engineering, tech, adoption, product market fit that what you think you've made is not always who you think you've made it for, and it can be kind of applied in different ways. That's really cool.
We're in an interesting time to be alive. Yeah.
So I found another thing, which is potentially, again, something that people can try right now, which is within the voice space. Just to kind of caveat, I haven't played around with it, and I can't fully speak to its efficacy outside of their sizzle and their promotional side of it, which is wild. And I'm like, incredibly impressed with it. But earlier this week, I played with a little toy called PlayHT, which came out with their 2.0 kind of version of their product this week, where essentially, going right the way back to what you said with overdubs in languages and building out models of voices that you could potentially use to do that. Because what Mr. Beast is doing that in a traditional way. He's got a studio of people that have voice artists, and that's an awesome way of doing it. PlayHT can essentially build a model of your voice, and then you just have to write the script into it to then create a voiceover. And so essentially, if you're looking at the volume production of voice, potentially for multi-language support, that could be a really cool tool. And I uploaded a little 30-second clip of me speaking to it earlier this week, and it took about a minute to render out. I wrote a script into it, and it played, and I was astounded to how close to me it is. So this isn't me speaking. This is a clone of my voice. I trained it with 30 seconds of clean audio, uploaded it, and boom, here it is. What do you think? Does it match? Is it scary? Is it right? Who knows, but it's here. Like what you were saying with the localization, do you think that kind of tool would be a useful thing within a professional workflow? Is that a usable thing right now?
I don't know what it's like in terms of language models for just disseminating that, but what it could be interesting is if, the CEO doesn't have time to put out this news thing. You've got some very smart motion graphics, you've got the voice model that can, say what it needs to say, or brands that need to get information out really quickly and try to have a vocal consistency. They could almost pay for the licensing of that human being's voice that they can just reuse on their content, I think within reason. Then it becomes extremely gray on how that will work in terms of using a human's voice. It becomes a bit Black Mirror-esque.
Yeah, I think from our point of view, legislation will definitely catch up with technology, but there's also just kind of human centricity in our approach to this as well, of not being too overly tech focused and making sure that we focus on the right people. There's one thing that just came to mind for me, and that working remotely and all of our team all over the world, I like to try and leave the house sometimes, as much as I can. I'll try and leave the house, and I love to listen to a podcast. If you could generate something that's a hyper personal or really relevant piece of thing that's within your business, but with a really light lift, by taking that sort of thing, translating that into something that you could listen to whilst you just leave the house and get away from Slack for 10 minutes, but that is playing in a voice that you want to hear, that could be a pretty cool application as well.
Or even your tech updates. There's a lot of channels that become hard and overwhelming. If there's one person copies and pastes it into a script to get sent out at the end of the week, and while someone's making their coffee on a Friday morning, can just catch up and know exactly what has happened.
This is cool. So what have we covered today? Come on, we've done Mr. Beast, multi-languages. How awesome that is. The HeyGen lip sync localization, slightly amplified version of that, which could have real commercial applications in loads of different ways.
Yeah.
Voice cloning and the maybe pros, cons, and the pros and cons for the professionals as well. And then, we've actually come up with a new idea on this.
Yeah.
Slack audio podcast. I like it.
Team updates in audio form.
Yeah, but anything that can get you AFK. Am I showing my age there when I use that acronym? Do people still use that acronym? Away from
they do, but I'm probably of a similar age.
Maybe people still use it. I don't know, but anything that can get me AFK but still informed would be a cool thing. Cool. How do we wrap things up? I don't know how to wrap things up.
Do they come back?
Do they come back?
Leave?
Come on, that's got to be done now, guys. We're meant to do it in 10 minutes, weren't we?
Do we leave the studio? You can tell us in the chat.